Commander Vexera floated in the observation chamber, her four tentacles gracefully adjusting the holographic displays around her. The Galactic Council had given her what they called a simple assignment. Watch the humans fight, document their combat methods, report back with recommendations on whether these primitive beings posed any threat to the established order of the galaxy. She had laughed when she received the orders. Humans? The species that had barely mastered faster-than-light travel a decade ago? The ones who still used projectile weapons when the rest of the galaxy had moved on to plasma cannons and quantum disruptors? This would be the easiest observation mission of her career. The stealth ship hummed quietly as it positioned itself above the human colony world of New Haven. Intelligence reports indicated that a band of space pirates had been terrorizing the outer colonies, and the humans had finally decided to make a stand here. The pirates weren't anything special, just a mixed crew of Zorgans and Kelthids who had stolen some outdated military vessels. Against any proper Galactic Council force, they wouldn't last 5 minutes. But the humans weren't a proper force. They were new, untested, and, according to every military analyst in the Council, hopelessly outmatched. Vexera activated her neural recorder, preparing to document what she assumed would be a quick and brutal defeat. The pirate ships appeared on her sensors first. 3 medium-sized vessels armed with standard plasma weapons and basic shielding. They dropped out of hyperspace with the confidence of predators who had never met their match. Then, the humans responded. At first, Vexera thought her sensors were malfunctioning. Where the orbital defense platforms should have been, there was nothing but empty space. The colony seemed completely defenseless. She checked her instruments again, confusion rippling through her translucent blue skin. The pirate commander, a scarred Zorgan named Grax, must have been thinking the same thing. His voice crackled across the open channels, full of arrogance and greed. Humans of New Haven, you have 1 hour to surrender your colony and all its resources. Resist, and we will take what we want anyway, leaving nothing but ashes behind. The human response was calm, almost casual. This is Colonel Sarachun of the New Haven Defense Force. We've heard your terms and respectfully decline. You have 5 minutes to leave our space. Grax's laughter boomed through the communication system. 5 minutes? Little human, do you not see our weapons? Our shields? What do you have that could possibly? His words cut off as the first mine detonated. Vexera's sensors screamed warnings as space itself seemed to explode around the pirate vessels. The humans had somehow hidden hundreds of mines in the debris field surrounding their planet. Mines that were virtually invisible to standard scanning equipment. But these weren't ordinary mines. As she watched, it didn't just explode. They attached themselves to the pirate ships like metallic parasites, burrowing through shields with some kind of molecular acid she had never seen before. The pirates tried to respond, their plasma cannons lighting up space with brilliant green fire. But the human colony's surface suddenly came alive with return fire. What Vexera had dismissed as farming equipment and mining installations revealed themselves to be cleverly disguised weapons platforms. Projectile weapons, yes, but projectiles moving at velocities that shouldn't have been possible. She zoomed in on one of the human weapons, her analytical mind trying to understand what she was seeing. They had taken simple mass drivers, the kind used for launching cargo into orbit, and modified them into weapons. But the modifications were ingenious. Each projectile was actually a cluster of smaller rounds that separated after launch, making them nearly impossible to target with point defense systems. The pirates' shields, designed to deflect energy weapons, were useless against the hypervelocity metal storms the humans unleashed. Vexera watched in growing amazement as the human projectiles punched through the shields like they weren't even there, tearing into hull plating and critical systems. But it was what happened next that made her truly begin to understand why the Council had sent her here. A small human vessel, barely larger than a shuttle, emerged from behind New Haven's moon. Vexera's sensors identified it as a mining ship, probably commandeered for the defense. It should have been destroyed instantly by the pirates' superior firepower. Instead, the human pilot did something insane. The mining ship accelerated directly toward the largest pirate vessel, ignoring the plasma fire that scorched its hull. At the last second, the human ship released its cargo, tons of processed, or that had been superheated to molten temperatures. The molten metal splashed across the pirate ship's viewing ports and sensor arrays, instantly blinding them. In the confusion, more human ships appeared. These weren't military vessels either. Cargo haulers, passenger shuttles, even personal yachts, anything that could fly and carry weapons. They swarmed the blinded pirate ship like insects, each one firing small projectiles that Vexera realized were magnetic harpoons. Within minutes, the pirates found themselves literally tied together by high-tensile cables, their movements restricted, their weapons unable to target the agile human vessels that danced around them. It was like watching predators caught in a spider's web. Grax's voice returned to the channels, but the arrogance was gone, replaced by something that sounded dangerously close to fear. "What are you doing? Fight us properly. Face us with honor." Colonel Chen's reply was ice cold. "Honor? You attack colonies. You murder families. You take what isn't yours. We don't owe you honor. We owe you extinction." The human ships began to pull in different directions, using the cables they had attached. The pirate vessel's hull groaned and buckled under the stress. Vexera realized with a mix of horror and fascination that the humans were literally going to tear the ship apart. But the pirates weren't finished yet. In desperation, Grax ordered his other two ships to fire on the human vessels. Friendly fire be damned. Plasma bolts filled space, and several human ships exploded in brilliant fireballs. The losses didn't slow the humans down. If anything, they seemed to make them more determined. Vexera watched a damaged human cargo hauler, its engine section completely destroyed, use its last bit of momentum to ram into a pirate vessel's engine array. The pilot must have known it was a one-way trip, but they did it anyway. The explosion crippled the pirate ship's ability to maneuver. Another human vessel, this one leaking atmosphere from multiple hull breaches, managed to get close enough to use some kind of industrial cutting laser on the pirate ship's weapon systems. The crew kept firing even as their life support failed, even as Vexera's sensors showed the temperature inside their ship dropping to fatal levels. By the void, Vexera whispered, her tentacles trembling. "They're not stopping. They're dying, and they're not stopping." She had seen many species fight. The Kelthids with their brutal efficiency, the Zorgans with their savage strength, the elegant Etherians with their advanced technology. But she had never seen anything like this. The humans weren't just defending their colony. They were sending a message. The battle turned into a massacre, but not the one anyone had expected. The pirates, for all their superior technology and firepower, were psychologically unprepared for enemies who would gladly die to take them down. Every human loss seemed to inspire two more to take their place. Miners, farmers, traders, civilians by any measurement, fought with the fury of trained soldiers. One of the pirate vessels tried to flee, its captain apparently deciding that no amount of plunder was worth this. The humans didn't let them go. A group of modified mining drones, normally used for asteroid harvesting, pursued the fleeing ship. They attached to its hull and began cutting through the armor with tools meant for breaking apart space rocks. Vexera enhanced her sensors, trying to understand the human command structure. What she found defied everything she knew about military organization. There was no central command. Colonel Chun provided coordination, yes, but individual ship captains were making their own tactical decisions in real time. It should have been chaos. Instead, it was devastatingly effective. The humans seemed to instinctively understand each other's intentions. A damaged ship would position itself to shield another. Vessels low on ammunition would seamlessly swap positions with those still armed. They moved like a single organism with dozens of independent brains. "Fascinating," Vexera murmured, her recorder capturing every detail. No rigid hierarchy, no elaborate battle plans. Just purpose, unity of purpose. The end came swiftly after that. Grax's ship, still tangled in cables, and, with most of its systems failing, sent out a distress signal. It was a call for surrender, begging for mercy. The humans stopped firing. For a moment, Vexera thought they might actually show clemency. Then, Colonel Chen's voice filled the void, calm and terrifying in its certainty. You came here to prey on what you saw as weakness. You thought because we are new to the stars, we would be easy victims. But we have something you don't understand. We have survived ice ages, plagues, wars that nearly ended our species. We have clawed our way up from the mud of our home world through sheer stubborn refusal to die. And now you threaten our children, our future among the stars. She paused, and when she spoke again, her words carved themselves into Vexera's memory. Your surrender is not accepted. Let every pirate, every raider, every would-be conqueror in the galaxy know what happens when you threaten human colonies. We are not prey. We are not victims. We are the species that weaponizes everything, that turns farmers into soldiers and cargo ships into warships. We are the species that will chase you to the ends of the galaxy for threatening our own. The human ships opened fire again, and within minutes, nothing remained of the pirate fleet but expanding clouds of debris and frozen atmosphere. Vexera floated in silence, her mind struggling to process what she had witnessed. The battle had lasted less than a standard hour. 3 pirate vessels with superior technology had been utterly annihilated by a collection of civilian ships and improvised weapons. More disturbing still, the humans had suffered significant casualties, nearly 40% of their makeshift fleet destroyed, and yet they had pressed the attack with increasing ferocity. She replayed sections of the battle, analyzing the human tactics. On the surface, they seemed crude, almost primitive, but there was a genius in their simplicity. They had turned every disadvantage into an advantage. Their lack of military vessels, they used ships the pirates wouldn't expect to be threats. Their inferior weapons technology, they found ways to bypass shields entirely. Their smaller numbers, they made each ship count through sheer determination. But it was the psychological aspect that truly unsettled her. The pirates had come expecting fear, submission, perhaps token resistance. Instead, they had encountered something that defied rational military thinking. Enemies who became more dangerous as they took losses, who turned death itself into a weapon. As she prepared her preliminary report, Vexera found herself looking at the human colony with new eyes. New Haven continued its daily routine as if nothing had happened. The debris from the battle was already being collected, no doubt to be recycled into new weapons or ships. Children played in the streets. Farmers returned to their fields. To them, this wasn't a miraculous victory against overwhelming odds. It was simply what had to be done. Computer, Vexera said quietly, flag this report for immediate council attention. Classification level maximum. She paused, trying to find words that would convey what she had seen to beings who had never witnessed human warfare. How could she explain that technological superiority meant nothing against a species that had evolved through millennia of turning disadvantages into survival? How could she make them understand that giving humans a reason to fight was possibly the most dangerous thing in the galaxy? The stealth ship's computer acknowledged her command with a soft chime. As it began encrypting her data for transmission, Vexera turned back to observe the human colony. She had been sent here to determine if humans posed a threat to galactic order. Now, she wondered if the real question was whether the galaxy was prepared for humanity. 3 months had passed since the New Haven incident, and Vexera found herself in the prestigious council chamber on the capital world of Nexus Prime. Her report had caused more stir than she had anticipated. The Council of 7, representatives of the galaxy's most powerful species, had convened an emergency session to discuss the human question. She floated in the center of the circular chamber, surrounded by beings who had shaped galactic politics for millennia. The Etherian Counselor, a crystalline entity that sparkled with internal light, spoke first. Observer Vexera, your report is troubling. You suggest that a species barely capable of interstellar travel poses a significant military threat. This seems alarmist. Before Vexera could respond, the Zorgan counselor, massive and covered in ceremonial battle scars, interjected. The pirates who attacked New Haven were outcasts, weaklings. Their defeat means nothing. Vexera's tentacles shifted nervously, but her voice remained steady. Respectfully, Counselor Grex, I have submitted all sensor data from the engagement. The humans didn't just defeat the pirates, they psychologically destroyed them. And they did it with mining equipment and cargo vessels. The Kelthid counselor, her insectoid features impossible to read, clicked her mandibles thoughtfully. Perhaps a more comprehensive test is needed. If these humans are truly as dangerous as you suggest, we need proof beyond a single skirmish. Vexera felt a chill run through her translucent form. What kind of test? The counselors exchanged glances that spoke of decisions already made. The Etherian's light pulsed as it spoke again. There's a situation developing in the outer reaches. The Marani hegemony has been expanding aggressively, conquering system after system. They recently set their sights on the human colony of Redemption. The Marani have a full battle fleet. Vexera protested. 17 warships, trained soldiers, advanced weaponry. You can't seriously suggest. We suggest nothing, the Zorgan counselor growled. We merely observe. If the humans fall, then your concerns were unfounded. If they survive, he left the sentence unfinished. You will continue your observation mission, the Kelthid counselor commanded. Document everything. We need to understand these humans before deciding how to proceed. Vexera wanted to object, to explain that sending her to watch a slaughter wasn't observation, but complicity. But she recognized a dismissal when she heard one. The council had made their decision. The humans would face a real military force, and she would watch them die. 2 weeks later, her stealth ship hung in the void near Redemption, a human colony that made New Haven look like a metropolis. Maybe 50,000 souls on a world barely terraformed, eking out existence, mining rare minerals, and growing adapted crops. They had no orbital defenses, no military fleet, nothing but the same stubborn determination that seemed to characterize the species. The Marani fleet arrived exactly on schedule, dropping out of hyperspace in perfect formation. 17 ships arranged in a battle pyramid, their hulls gleaming with advanced armor that could shrug off most known weapons. Admiral Kethvar commanded from the flagship, a veteran of 30 campaigns who had never known defeat. His ultimatum was broadcast on all frequencies. Humans of Redemption, I am Admiral Kethvar of the Marani hegemony. Your world now belongs to us. You have 6 hours to evacuate all military personnel and prepare for occupation. Resistance will result in orbital bombardment. You have been warned. Vexera expected panic evacuation attempts, maybe desperate pleas for mercy. Instead, the human response made her skin ripple with remembered dread. Admiral Kethvar, this is Governor Marcus Webb. We've received your message. Our response is simple. Redemption is our home. We've buried our dead in this soil, raised our children under these stars. If you want this world, you'll have to take it from us. And, Admiral, we've been preparing for you. The Admiral's response was a harsh laugh. Preparing? Our scouts report no defensive installations, no fleet presence. What could you possibly have prepared? You'll find out soon enough. The channel closed, and Vexera found herself leaning forward, every sensor focused on the planet below. What were the humans planning? They couldn't possibly hope to resist a force like this. The Marani began their assault exactly 6 hours later, following standard invasion protocols. Dropships launched from the larger vessels, carrying thousands of troops in powered armor. Fighter escorts swarmed around them, ready to engage any aerospace defenses. They met no resistance on the way down. Vexera watched the Marani ground forces establish a beachhead just outside the main colony. They moved with professional precision, setting up shield generators, deploying heavy weapons, preparing for the urban combat they excelled at. Still, the humans didn't appear. Admiral Kethvar's voice crackled with irritation. Where are they? Scans show life signs throughout the colony, but no defensive positions. That's when the ground exploded. Not just exploded, erupted. What the Marani had taken for solid ground was actually a thin crust over a massive underground chamber filled with mining explosives. The entire beachhead vanished in a cloud of vaporized rock and metal. The shield generators, the heavy weapons, hundreds of soldiers, gone in an instant. But the humans weren't done. From hidden positions throughout the surrounding hills, projectile weapons opened fire. Not advanced mass drivers like at New Haven, but simple chemical-propelled bullets against Marani power armor. This should have been useless. Should have been. Vexera zoomed in on the impacts and gasped. The bullets weren't trying to penetrate the armor. They were carrying some kind of chemical payload that reacted violently with the armor's power cells. Each impact created a small explosion, not enough to breach the armor, but enough to damage power systems, joint servos, sensor arrays. Marani soldiers found themselves trapped in armor that no longer responded to their commands, weighted down by hundreds of pounds of suddenly inert metal. Those who managed to eject from their suits found themselves facing human defenders who had spent months learning every inch of terrain. The colony's miners had turned the entire region into a death trap. Tunnels allowed defenders to appear behind enemy lines, fire, and vanish. Pitfalls covered with hollow camouflage swallowed entire squads. The very air became a weapon as the humans released clouds of mineral dust that clogged Marani equipment and made targeting systems useless. Admiral Kethvar, watching his ground forces get systematically destroyed, made the decision that would seal his fate. All ships prepare for orbital bombardment. We'll sterilize the entire region. That's when the second phase of the human plan activated. Hidden among the asteroid belt that Redemption's miners have been working for years, dozens of small objects began to move. Vexera's sensors identified them as mining drones, the kind used to break apart asteroids for processing. But these have been modified. Each drone carried a simple payload, a chunk of asteroid fitted with crude engines and even cruder guidance systems. Mass drivers built into mining stations throughout the belt began firing, launching these improvised missiles toward the Marani fleet at significant fractions of light speed. The Marani point defense systems, designed to track and destroy sophisticated missiles, struggled to deal with what were essentially guided rocks. There were too many coming from too many directions. The fleet's formation, perfect for ship-to-ship combat, made them sitting targets for this primitive but effective barrage. Admiral Kethvar ordered his ships to scatter, to gain maneuvering room, but that's what the humans have been counting on. As the fleet broke formation, small human vessels emerged from hiding places throughout the system. Mining ships, cargo haulers, even single-person prospecting pods, anything that could move and carry weapons. They didn't try to match the Marani ship to ship. Instead, they swarmed like angry hornets, targeting specific systems. A mining laser here to blind sensors. A cargo pod full of explosives there to damage engines. The humans took horrendous casualties. Vexera watched ship after ship vaporized by Marani weapons. But they kept coming. And then she noticed something that made her recalibration her understanding of human warfare yet again. The attacks weren't random. Each human ship that died accomplished something specific. This one drew fire away from others. That one damaged a weapon system before being destroyed. Another used its death to mask the approach of more dangerous threats. They were trading lives for tactical advantages, and doing it willingly. Governor Webb's voice cut across the chaos, broadcasting on an open channel. Admiral Kethvar, you came here thinking you were hunters, and we were prey. But you made the same mistake every conqueror makes. You thought superior technology and numbers would guarantee victory. You didn't understand that this world isn't just where we live, it's who we are. A massive mining vessel, the largest in the human fleet, emerged from behind Redemption's moon. Vexera's sensors showed it was barely holding together, its hull patched with whatever materials the humans could find. It shouldn't have been able to threaten a Marani warship. But its cargo bay was full of something that made Vexera's sensors scream warnings. The humans had been mining fissile materials. Lots of fissile materials. The entire ship was essentially a massive dirty bomb. The mining vessel accelerated toward the Marani flagship, ignoring the plasma fire that tore through its hull. The human crew kept it on course, even as sections of the ship vaporized around them. Admiral Kethvar's last transmission was a scream of disbelief. Madness. This is madness. The explosion, when it came, was visible from the planet's surface. The flagship and two escort vessels simply ceased to exist, replaced by an expanding sphere of superheated gas and radiation. The electromagnetic pulse knocked out systems throughout the fleet. In the confusion that followed, the human attacks intensified. Every colonist who could hold a weapon was fighting. Children who should have been in school-piloted drone swarms. Elderly settlers who had come to redemption for a quiet retirement manned weapon stations. Even the colony's medical staff had weaponized their equipment, using surgical lasers and modified medical nanobots as weapons. The Marani forces, trained for conventional warfare against conventional enemies, began to break. The psychological impact of facing enemies who turned everything into a weapon, who fought with no regard for their own survival, who seemed to grow more dangerous the more you hurt them. It was too much. Some tried to surrender. The humans, remembering New Haven, remembering every colony that had been destroyed by conquerors who thought humans were easy prey, didn't accept. This wasn't war anymore. It was extermination. By the time it ended, only 3 Marani ships escaped, fleeing at maximum speed toward the hyperspace limit. They left behind the wreckage of 14 warships, thousands of dead soldiers, and a human colony that had paid for victory with nearly 60% casualties. Vexera watched the aftermath in stunned silence. The humans didn't celebrate. They collected their dead, salvaged what they could from Marani wrecks, and began rebuilding. Children who had piloted combat drones went back to school. Miners returned to their asteroids. Life continued. She compiled her second report with trembling tentacles, trying to find words that would make the council understand. The humans hadn't just won against overwhelming odds. They had transformed their entire society into a weapon. Every citizen was a potential soldier. Every tool was a potential weapon. Every sacrifice was acceptable if it meant protecting their own. But perhaps most terrifying of all was how quickly they returned to normal afterward. Other species might be traumatized by such losses, might take generations to recover. The humans simply accepted it as the price of survival and moved on. As her ship prepared to return to Council space, Vexera intercepted communications from other human colonies. Word of Redemption's victory was spreading. More importantly, the methods were spreading. Colonies throughout human space were beginning to implement similar preparations, learning from each battle, adapting, and improving. She thought about the Council's test, their assumption that throwing a real military force at the humans would either prove or disprove the threat they represented. Instead, they had done something far more dangerous. They had taught the humans that the galaxy was hostile. They had given them a reason to prepare for war. And, worst of all, they had shown the humans they could win. The council chamber had never felt so cold. Vexera floated before the assembled representatives, her second report having caused even more turmoil than the first. Several minor species ambassadors had been permitted to attend this session, the human question having grown beyond a matter for just the Council of Seven. The Etherian counselor's light flickered with agitation. This is worse than we anticipated. The humans didn't just survive, they begun spreading their combat doctrines to other colonies. And the Marani are demanding action, the Zorgan counselor added, his scarred face twisted in what might have been concern. They've lost significant face. Admiral Keth